What up, is Marcus Dynasty Dads? If you did not get my message on YouTube, my daughter was born last Monday, so I haven't done a video in a little over a week here. We were in the NICU for 5 days, so I'm not sure if any of you have experienced that. It sounds scary. It wasn't as scary as it sounds. Mom and baby are healthy. My wife was due November 4th. Baby came a little early. Her name is Haven. And so I've been still watching football. It's been kind of actually nice to be able to sit on the couch and have almost a little bit of an excuse to sit there and feed her a little bit with a bottle and stuff. So it's just been kind of nice. But I wanted to give this video, I wanted to actually create this video I had it on the docket for last week. And the reason for this is because it is such an important video. It is determining when to buy some of these Dynasty rookies. And this is always a great time. This kind of week 6, 7, that third of the way through the season. I talk about this literally the last 2 years on when do we buy some of these prospects. And the players that I have in mind, and the players that I had in mind, honestly, almost all of them did really well last week, which is kind of frustrating because you could have bought them cheaper last week. And I actually made some trades. I was in the hospital, and I was like, I'm going to make some trades. And so the first player I want to talk about was Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs was somebody that had some extreme disappointment. David Montgomery has been taking all the touchdowns, and I thought Jahmyr Gibbs was going to show that he is still a very, very talented running back. And there are some people that will have that kind of that PTSD of remembering what CEH did, and remembering some of these Rashad Penny, and remembering some of these first-round draft capital running backs that ended up just not being what they were supposed to be. We even start looking at stats like CJ Spiller, and we start looking at running backs under 200 pounds that had that really high draft capital and that really high talent that just ended up never being what they were supposed to in the NFL. And so people were starting to get worried. And so Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the biggest buys that I had going into, and I would still buy it. And when I say buy, you're not going to buy these players for 50 cents on the dollar. You're going to buy these players 85 cents on the dollar. And that rate's going to keep going up for some of these players. And I would still buy Jahmyr Gibbs. You're not going to buy him for a late first, but if you could get him for 2 firsts, I think that depending where those firsts are, I think that could be a beneficial trade. It's a trade that I just made. Or a first and a prospect that can get you into Jahmyr Gibbs land. The second was with Jackson Smith-Njigba. Yes, I did not know the DK Metcalf was going to be out for this week, but he was one of the biggest buys. When I look at a talent pool, I look at, do I think he's going to be Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, same college? Or do I think he's going to be more in the realms of disappointment, like a Denzel Mims or a Jameson Williams, who has been disappointment so far? Or even like a Henry Ruggs or a Jerry Jeudy, along those lines. Do I think he's going to follow into the trajectory of being a talented wide receiver, or do I think he's going to end up being a big bust? And in my opinion, I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is in the realm of category of Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. I think he's in that talent bracket. And so I think Jackson Smith-Njigba, even though that he had a decent game, people still might be worried with Tyler Lockett there, with DK Metcalf there. I think that Jackson Smith-Njigba is a hyper-talented wide receiver, and I think that he is somebody that you have to buy still in Dynasty. Even if it's 85 cents on the dollar, he was the wide receiver one of that draft class by far. We see what Jordan Addison just did on Monday night. We still see what even like Zay Flowers and Puka Nacua, what they are doing. Jackson Smith-Njigba is still the most talented wide receiver by far. And so, yes, Puka Nacua is coming on flaming. He's going crazy. But in Dynasty realm, who would I rather have? I would still rather have JSN, talent-wise. And I know that may hurt people, but honestly, that's just where I have, that's how high I have Jackson Smith-Njigba talent-wise. The next one is Dalton Kincaid, who actually had his best career game. And you can see why I had these players listed and actually traded for Jackson Smith-Njigba. Traded for Dalton Kincaid, traded for Jahmyr Gibbs. I got equity in some of these players, right? And I was like, man, I wish I could have made a video. It was so busy at the NICU and so busy at the hospital that I guess I was too busy making trades, not busy enough, and sleeping, trying to actually get some sleep going on. But, so the biggest one, Dalton Kincaid, very talented, first round pick. We look at, I think people have some worry with Kyle Pitts. I mean, they see Kyle Pitts. They talk about even Evan Ingram and stuff, and they're like, am I getting the next tight end that is going to be worthless? Not worthless. The next tight end that's going to be a bust. And they see the Sam Laporta, and they get Goo Goo Gaga over Sam Laporta. And they even starting to get Goo Goo Gaga over Luke Musgrave and stuff. And yes, Sam Laporta has jumped Dalton Kincaid when it comes to players that I would rather have. And remember, I was a big Sam Laporta fan even in the beginning, and then all of a sudden he just got skyrocketed, and I was like, ooh, man, maybe Sam Laporta is being overdrafted, and now we realize, man, maybe he is potentially the top Dynasty tight end, if not one of the top 3 Dynasty tight ends. Mark Andrews still has a fight in there. I still think that you could put Kyle Pitts potentially in there, but gosh, that is starting to fade real quickly. But we'll get into a Kyle Pitts discussion at a different time. The next one I think is the biggest question mark, and it's Quentin Johnston. This is if you're gonna buy him, this is, I think, an opportunity to buy him. I worry about him. He was my biggest bust candidate. Because of what you saw. Like, I think that when you have a big-bodied wide receiver that doesn't separate well and doesn't necessarily run after the catch very well either, it concerns me unless he's put in a perfect situation, which I thought that Herbert might have been the perfect situation. Still behind Jordan Addison, still behind Jackson Smith-Njigba preseason. And so there's some big concerns that I have with QJ. And so this is one that I'm going to say tread lightly. I think you're going to have to get a bigger discount. He just reminds me of players like Denzel Mims, like N'Keal Harry, that when you Laquan Treadwell, like bigger bodied wide receivers that just don't figure it out in the NFL level. And that is my biggest concern. So I'm saying you could buy if you believe. I'm going to be one that is not going to buy him. I just am not. I can't do it because I just don't believe in the talent. Another couple players that I want to talk about, Tyjae Spears, over 50% of the snap share. He has to be, you got to buy him now. Derrick Henry could be traded in the next 9 days. If I tell you one thing, buy Tyjae Spears. I sold Tyjae Spears earlier this year, and I'm fully regretting it in the Dynasty Dads League. Thank you, whoever took him from me. I win a lot of trades, but I definitely lost that trade. And Tyjae Spears is really talented running back. We saw that in the Senior Bowl. We saw that with some of the talent. We have to buy him now because one of two things will happen. Tyjae Spears will either A, be the starting running back if Derrick Henry gets traded, or he'll be the starting running back next year. Either way, Tyjae Spears is somebody that we have to buy right now. If you hear one thing, I think he is the one that to buy here. Another couple players I do want to talk about, Luke Musgrave. I think that he definitely has the talent. He's been highly targeted by Jordan Love, a tight end that I think might be worth being into that Dallas Goedert territory with that middle tight end 1, like that 6, 7, 8 range. I think that he could be a player that of note that we need to start talking about. And so rookies are, again, you have to either figure out, are they going to be the bust, or can you buy them 50% or 80% on the dollar, 85% on the dollar? I am going to say, if you are going to buy Bijan Robinson at any point, this is the time to buy him. And send it 85 cents on the dollar offer. Send 2 first plus something. Send what you would send for RB 6-7. Like, send an offer what you would do to Gibbs now. Send that to the Bijan owner. I was sending 2 firsts and who else was I sending? Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins to the Bijan owner, and they were thinking about it. And they're like, I just can't do it. And I was like, what can get it done? Because I was like, I'm desperate, man. I don't have any Bijan shares. Like, what? I didn't tell him that, but it's like, what can I do? Because he has performed not that great, but he is still my RB1. I've seen in chats, do we have Breece Hall at RB1 now? Do we have Jonathan Taylor ahead of him? Do we have CMC ahead of him? It's like, no. Bijan is by far my RB1 still. Don't waver. He was sick. When you are ill and sick and they don't necessarily need you that game, like, it's fine. Tyler Allgeier's not the talent that you want there. Maybe Atlanta and Arthur Smith, even if they perform horribly, even if Arthur Smith abuses Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson's talent, he's not going to be there for long enough to affect it too long. Bijan Robinson, if you can do anything, trade for him, please, right now. 85, 90 cents on the dollar. Again, trade for him like he's RB6. in Dynasty. If you can get him for that talent, like, do it. And that's what I'll do with a lot of these prospects. Jahmyr Gibbs, I was offering him like RB 10ish type RB 10ish 11 12 type of I believe draft capital. And I think he's RB 6, 7, somewhere around there. So I'm feeling like I'm getting a value. Same with Jordan Addison and Zay Flower. Those players are already kind of booming, so it's harder to get those types of players. So get your rookies now, because we're going to talk about it in a couple weeks when all of a sudden Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jahmyr Gibbs is all of a sudden an RB1 the last few weeks, and Bijan's come back and he's fully healthy and he tears apart some of the league. Like, this is the time to do it now. So I'm going to do waivers a little bit later today once I get home, and then we have a pediatric appointment, which is why I'm doing this in the car right now. So I'll see you guys very shortly. Peace out. Take care.